Have you ever paused for a moment right before making a decision and felt something deep inside you whisper a direction? Not loud, not logical, just a quiet, unexplainable pull. Maybe you decided to take a different route home only to avoid a massive traffic accident. Maybe you chose to call someone out of the blue and they said, "I was just thinking of you." Or maybe in the stillness of a morning, a voice within you simply said, "Wait, don't rush. Something is coming." That subtle feeling, that quiet nudge, is not random. It's not a coincidence. It's the universe speaking to you through the language of intuition. Most people live their entire lives ignoring that voice, brushing it off as imagination or emotion. But what if I told you that this quiet signal is not only real, but it's also the most ancient, most reliable communication system we've ever had? What if the universe speaks to you not with words, but with moments? Symbols, synchronicities, and that unmistakable inner knowing you can't explain? You felt it before. We all have. But very few of us know how to listen. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the unseen, into the mysterious but undeniable ways the universe guides you every single day through your intuition. We'll explore the science, the soul, and the synchronicities. We'll unlock the signals hiding in everyday life. And most importantly, we'll awaken the part of you that already knows how to speak the language of the cosmos. Because this is not magic. This is your birthright. Intuition is not a gift for the few. It's an ancient intelligence embedded within all of us. And the more you learn to hear it, trust it, and act on it, the more aligned your life becomes. Decisions feel lighter. Paths open faster. And the chaos of life starts to make a strange kind of sense. But let's start at the beginning. What is intuition really? Is it just a gut feeling and a random emotion, a subconscious pattern, recognitions system, or is it something far more profound, something that bridges the realms of the invisible and the seen, the spiritual and the psychological, the quantum and the soul? To answer that, we need to go back before language, before logic, back to the raw primal intelligence that helped humans survive in the wild, avoid danger, sense truth, and feel what couldn't be proven. Intuition in its purest form was never meant to be loud or rational. It was meant to be fast, subtle, and direct, a way of knowing without knowing why. And this ancient knowing, this quiet radar, is still alive in you today. The problem: we've forgotten how to listen. We've trained ourselves to ignore it. Our world worships logic, data, and proof, but the soul whispers. It moves in signs and feelings and timings that don't always make sense. And yet the people who learn to trust it, who follow their intuition, often find themselves exactly where they're meant to be. Not by force, not by planning, but by alignment. And that's the key. The universe is not trying to trick you. It's not hiding. It's always speaking. You just have to tune in. So how do we do that? How do we recognize when it's intuition versus fear? How do we separate our inner knowing from anxiety, doubt, or wishful thinking? How do we begin to trust something we can't measure? That's what this journey is all about. Over the next chapters, we'll explore the different ways the universe communicates with you, from subtle bodily sensations to recurring numbers, from dreams to random conversations, from déjà vu to perfect timing. We'll look at stories from people who followed their intuition and changed their lives. We'll explore research from neuroscience, psychology, and even quantum physics that supports what spiritual traditions have known for centuries: that reality is far more interconnected and intelligent than we've been taught. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand intuition. You'll feel it. You'll start noticing the signs in your own life. You'll become more aware, more open, and more connected. And when the next whisper comes, you won't brush it off. You'll listen, because you'll know it's not just a feeling. It's the universe speaking directly to you. The nature of intuition. Ancient wisdom meets modern science. Intuition has been called many things: a sixth sense, a gut feeling, inner guidance, the voice of the soul. But no matter what name it takes, intuition is something all humans experience, often without fully understanding it. The ancients didn't have the language of neuroscience, but they knew its power. In nearly every spiritual tradition, from indigenous shamans to Eastern mystics, intuition was seen as a sacred inner compass, a bridge between the physical world and the invisible realms. It was respected, trained, and trusted. Today, we're starting to understand why. Modern neuroscience reveals that intuition isn't mystical fluff. It's a real, measurable phenomenon. Our brains are constantly processing information beneath our conscious awareness. In fact, over 90% of all sensory input never reaches our conscious mind. But that data is still there, stored, analyzed, and acted upon by something deeper. Intuition emerges from this vast unconscious intelligence. When your body tenses up around someone without knowing why, it's not magic. It's pattern recognition. Your subconscious has picked up cues, tone expression, micro gestures that trigger an alert. When you feel a strong urge to decline an opportunity, even though it looks perfect on paper, that may be your deeper mind recognizing unseen misalignments. Scientists call this implicit learning, the brain's ability to detect complex patterns without deliberate reasoning. This is the foundation of intuitive intelligence. It's fast, nonverbal, and rooted in the emotional and sensory centers of the brain. That's why intuition often feels physical, like a tightening in the chest, a flutter in the gut, a surge of peace or resistance. It speaks through the body because it bypasses logic. It is the whisper before the thought, the sensation before the reason. But here's where science alone falls short. Because while neuroscience can explain how intuition works, it doesn't explain why it can be so precise. Why does your gut pull you towards someone who ends up being your soulmate? Why does a dream warn you about something that happens days later? Why do the right words appear at the right moment, as if orchestrated by something greater? This is where ancient wisdom adds a missing piece. In spiritual traditions across the world, intuition is not seen as mere brain activity. It's considered a channel. A channel through which the universe, God's spirit, whatever name you prefer, communicates directly with you. Not through external noise, but through your own inner knowing. The soul doesn't speak English or French. It speaks in resonance, in frequency, in energy, and intuition is the antenna. When you experience synchronicity, a perfect coincidence that feels too meaningful to be chance, that's the universe creating alignment, not forcing you, but nudging you, opening a door, whispering this way. When you feel that internal tug, that sense of truth that has no evidence, that's your deeper self responding to universal flow. In fact, many mystics believe that intuition is your higher self speaking, the version of you that exists beyond time, that already knows the path, that's simply trying to guide you back home. So what does this mean for your everyday life? It means you are not navigating alone. It means every choice, every interaction, every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity to listen. Not just to your mind, but to your alignment. Your intuition is not separate from you. It is you, Amo, just the quieter part. And the more you learn to honor it, the more you begin to live in rhythm with life itself, not against it. We live in a world that praises logic and dismisses the unseen. But those who change their lives, those who feel guided, protected, and aligned, often share one thing in common: they listen. Not to the loudest voice, but to the truest one. They don't always need proof. They trust the pull. They trust the pause. They trust the whisper. Because they've realized something most people forget: the universe is not silent. It's just subtle. And intuition is how you hear it. Signs, synchronicities in the language of the universe. The universe rarely shouts. Instead, it leaves breadcrumbs. Quiet clues scattered across your path, waiting for you to notice. A song that plays right after you think of someone. A number you keep seeing over and over again. A conversation between strangers that somehow answers the question in your heart. These are not accidents. These are signs. And when they begin to cluster, to repeat, to form patterns so meaningful, it gives you chills. That's synchronicity. And it's one of the universe's favorite ways of speaking to you. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who first coined the term synchronicity, described it as a meaningful coincidence that has no apparent causal connection, but feels deeply significant. He believed these moments were the result of a deeper reality, an invisible web connecting all things, where the outer world mirrors the inner. In Jung's view, when something emotionally important stirs in your subconscious, the external world often responds in kind, aligning events, people, or symbols in a way that reflects your inner state. It's as if the universe is holding up a mirror saying, "Look here, pay attention." Most people brush off synchronicities as chance. But chance has no timing. It has no message. Synchronicity, on the other hand, always feels like it was placed there for you. Not because you're imagining it, but because you're finally awake enough to see it. You've opened your awareness and now reality responds. Let's take a simple example. You're thinking of quitting your job. You've been feeling restless, disconnected. One day as you're silently contemplating this on your commute, you see a billboard that reads, "It's time to start over." That afternoon, a stranger in line at the coffee shop turns to you and says, "Sometimes change is the only way to grow completely unprompted." That evening, your favorite TV show ends its episode with a character making a bold leap into the unknown. None of these things were directly caused by your thoughts, but somehow they all point to the same truth. That's synchronicity. These are not instructions, they're confirmations. They don't override your free will. They reflect your energy. Your inner world is magnetic. When you wrestle with something deeply enough, the universe often reflects it back to you, not through force, but through alignment. This is why synchronicities feel so personal, because they are. They don't speak to everyone the same way. They're coded in your language, your life, your heart's timing. Numbers are a common form. You might see 11, 11, 333, or 444 repeatedly. Each number has its own resonance, its own meaning and numerology. But beyond symbolism, these moments are often signals that you're in tune, that your frequency is aligned enough to notice what most people overlook. You're awake to the guidance. Sometimes the universe sends people instead of numbers. You meet someone who feels instantly familiar, like you've known them forever. You cross paths with a teacher, a mentor, or even a stranger whose single sentence alters the course of your thinking. These encounters may seem casual on the surface, but inside something shifts. You feel seen, validated, directed. The timing is too precise to be random. This is the language of soul orchestration, the universe moving through people to reach you. Dreams are another channel. Many synchronicities begin in sleep. You might dream of an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, and the next day they message you. Or you wake with a phrase echoing in your mind and then hear that same phrase later in a podcast or overheard conversation. These are not hallucinations. These are layered realities converging, collapsing the walls between the conscious and the unseen. It's as if the universe is saying, "You're listening now." Let's continue the conversation. But not all synchronicities are comforting. Some are warnings, a repeated symbol that makes you uneasy, a strange series of delays or cancellations that prevent you from taking a certain action. If you listen closely, you'll notice that your intuition is always guiding you not just toward what you desire, but away from what could harm you. When things don't flow, when resistance builds inexplicably, that too is a message. The universe doesn't just say yes. Sometimes it says, "Not yet," or "Go another way." The key is learning to pay attention, to move from autopilot to awareness, to stop brushing off that weird feeling or that perfect timing as coincidence. Because the moment you begin to notice the signs, they multiply, not because they weren't there before, but because your perception is shifting. You're becoming fluent in the subtle language of the cosmos. And once you learn this language, life becomes less about control and more about cooperation. You stop forcing, you start flowing. You begin to trust that if you follow the signs, even when the road looks strange, you'll end up exactly where you're meant to be. And more often than not, you'll look back and realize the signs were there all along. You just weren't listening yet. Intuition in decision-making. When logic fails, the soul speaks. Some of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in life won't come with data. They won't come with guarantees. They won't come with perfect clarity. You'll stand at a crossroads between two jobs, two cities, two relationships, two versions of yourself, and no matter how many pros and cons you list, the answer won't be found in reason. It will come in silence, in stillness, in a deep, almost unexplainable knowing. That knowing is intuition, and in moments like these, it speaks louder than logic ever could. You've likely experienced it before, that moment when every rational choice points one way, but your gut says otherwise. A career path that looks great on paper but feels wrong in your bones. A person everyone thinks is perfect for you, but something inside resists. A deal that seems too good to be true, and somehow you know it is. You can't explain it, you can't justify it, but you can feel it. That's the soul speaking. Logic is a powerful tool, but it has limits. It relies on past data, on predictable patterns. It analyzes what has been, not necessarily what could be. Intuition, on the other hand, moves ahead of time. It senses the unseen, the emotional terrain, the energetic alignment. It picks up on signals your conscious mind hasn't even registered yet. That's why it feels irrational. But irrational doesn't mean incorrect. In fact, some of the most successful people in history, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, credit their greatest choices not to analysis but to instinct. Steve Jobs once said, "Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become." Oprah Winfrey has often spoken about the inner whisper that guided her career choices. Even in high-stakes environments like finance, top investors often rely on gut feeling when the numbers alone can't decide. Why? Because beyond data, beyond logic, there is a human intelligence that transcends numbers, a felt sense of rightness that doesn't shout but resonates. The trouble is we've been trained to ignore it. From school to society, we're taught to think through everything, to demand proof, certainty, validation. And while logic has its place, it's often paralyzing when used alone. You can analyze forever and still feel stuck, because the real question is not always, what's the best choice, but rather what feels aligned. And alignment can't be measured, it must be sensed. So how do you know if it's truly intuition and not fear, anxiety, or wishful thinking? It starts with awareness. Intuition is calm. It's subtle. It doesn't race, it flows. It's not panicked or desperate. It's clear. When fear speaks, it usually comes with a tightness, a rush, a frantic need to act. When wishful thinking speaks, it tends to override red flags pushing you toward fantasy. But when intuition speaks, there is peace even in uncertainty. You may still be nervous about the leap, but somewhere inside there is trust. There is resonance. One way to access that resonance is through embodiment. Get out of your head and into your body. Your body knows. Your chest tightens when something's off. Your shoulders relax when something feels right. Your stomach churns when something's wrong. These aren't just random sensations, they're biological responses to subtle cues. The body often hears the truth before the mind does. Another way is through quiet. Clarity rarely comes in noise. It arrives in stillness. Meditation time in nature, journaling, these practices don't create intuition. They clear the interference so you can hear it. Often the answer is already within you. You just need to slow down long enough to feel it. And finally, practice builds trust. The more you follow your intuition, the more you learn its voice. You start to notice the difference between a fearful urge and a true inner nudge. You remember the times you ignored it and what it cost. You remember the times you followed it and how everything fell into place. Intuition becomes a muscle, and with each choice, it grows stronger. The universe is always guiding you, but not through logic alone. It speaks through intuition because that's where your spirit listens. And when you start to make decisions, not just from the head, but from the heart, from the gut, from the soul, you begin to live a life that's not just smart, but true. A life that feels right, even when no one else understands, even when the path is uncertain. Because somewhere deep inside, you know you're not walking blind, you're walking aligned. Everyday intuition, how the universe whispers through routine moments. Most people think intuition only shows up in life's big decisions, in love, career, or crises. But the truth is the universe doesn't wait for drama to speak to you. It whispers constantly in coffee shops, in traffic, in playlists, in silence. The more present you are, the more you realize that intuitive guidance isn't rare, it's constant. The only question is, are you quiet enough to hear it? Take the simple act of waking up. Some days you rise with an unusual feeling in your chest. Something's off. You can't name it. You didn't have a nightmare, but something lingers. You ignore it and rush into your day, and suddenly things start going wrong. In delays, arguments, misplaced keys. That off feeling wasn't anxiety, it was a signal. Your soul was trying to slow you down. Or think about the times when someone crosses your mind randomly for no reason at all. And then just hours later, you see their name pop up or bump into them at the store. That's not just memory, that's energetic alignment. You picked up on a ripple in the field, a subtle signal that reality was about to cross paths. Even things like hunger, sudden tiredness, or strange cravings can carry intuitive meaning. You're drawn to a walk instead of a workout. You feel like journaling instead of scrolling. You feel resistance to attending a meeting you originally agreed to. These are not just moods, they're nudges, because intuition often bypasses reason and speaks through action, desire, and aversion. You want to avoid something but can't explain why. That's not laziness. That might be protection. And when you override those quiet signals repeatedly, you may find yourself burned out, disoriented, or in situations that don't serve you. Intuition also speaks in patterns. You keep seeing the same animal, the same number, the same phrase. You hear the same message in three unrelated places. You think, that's weird. It's not weird. It's deliberate. It's the universe using the language of repetition to get your attention. Even your body becomes an instrument. That heavy sigh when something feels misaligned. That wave of calm when something clicks. That spontaneous smile when you're heading in the right direction. We often associate intuition with mysticism, but truly it's somatic. It's sensory. It's in the breath, the skin, the muscles. It's your biology being in constant conversation with your soul. And then there are the moments when intuition saves you without you even realizing it. You stop walking just before a car speeds by. You change your route last minute and avoid a problem. You leave a party early and later hear something went wrong. These moments don't always announce themselves, but when you reflect, you realize something told me, something moved me, something protected me. You might call it coincidence, but those who live intuitively know better. They know the universe doesn't only operate through spectacle, it lives in the ordinary. It dances in daily life. And when you train your awareness to catch these quiet whispers, life begins to shimmer. It feels more alive, more connected, more purposeful because you're no longer waiting for signs. You're walking inside them. This doesn't mean you have to question every tiny feeling or overanalyze every gut twitch. Living intuitively isn't about paranoia. It's about presence. It's about noticing the subtle nudges without demanding proof, about acting on alignment even if logic can't explain it yet, and about remembering that your soul doesn't only speak in emergencies, it speaks daily, and the universe responds in kind. So the next time you get a weird urge to call someone, follow it. The next time a song lyric feels like it's meant just for you, write it down. The next time a place calls you, even if it's out of the way, go. These are not accidents. These are invitations. And when you accept them, life becomes less mechanical and more magical. Not because the universe changed, but because you started listening. Dreams, symbols, and the subconscious. The nighttime language of the universe. When the noise of the world quiets, when your body rests and the mind begins to drift, that is when another language begins to speak. It's not made of words or logic. It's made of images, metaphors, emotion, and sensation. It's the language of dreams. And if intuition is the whisper of the soul during the day, then dreams are the conversation of the cosmos at night. They are not random. They are not just memory replays. Dreams are the subconscious mind reaching out and often the universe speaking through it. Throughout history, dreams have been seen as portals to divine wisdom. Ancient Egyptians believed dreams were messages from gods. In many indigenous cultures, dreams are sacred and are passed down in oral stories as guidance. Even in biblical texts, dreams were often seen as prophecies or spiritual instruction. In modern times, we've dismissed dreams as just imagination. But science is starting to catch up with what mystics have always known. Dreams reveal hidden truths, internal conflicts, and sometimes strangely accurate glimpses into what lies ahead. The subconscious mind, the layer of your awareness just beneath waking thought, is vast and untamed. It stores emotions, unresolved experiences, intuition, fears, desires, and archetypal symbols passed down from generations. And when you sleep, that subconscious becomes active, painting images that may feel chaotic, bizarre, or deeply moving. But if you begin to look closely, a pattern emerges. Symbols repeat, themes return, messages unfold. Maybe you dream of drowning when you're overwhelmed in real life, or you dream of being chased when you're avoiding something important, or you fly, float, fall, or lose your voice, each dream rich with metaphor. But sometimes the dream doesn't just reflect your inner state, it predicts. You dream of a place and visit it weeks later. You dream of someone calling and they do the next morning. You dream of a warning and it plays out exactly as felt. These moments are not fantasy. They are intuition working through your subconscious, delivering information in a form your waking mind can't yet process directly. Why symbols? Because that's how the soul speaks. not through spreadsheets or perfect grammar, but through images, energy, and resonance. Think of the subconscious like a vast ocean, and your dreams are waves bringing treasure from the depths to the shore. They don't always make sense at first glance, but when you start recording them, tracking them, noticing emotional tones, timing symbols, and repetition, you begin to speak that dream language fluently. You begin to see the universe has been speaking every night. You are just asleep to it. Lucid dreams, those moments when you become aware you're dreaming, are another powerful portal. In that space between sleep and wakefulness, reality bends, and your intention becomes a creative force. It is in these liminal spaces that guidance often becomes crystal clear. Some people use lucid dreams to ask questions, seek answers, confront fears, or even communicate with ancestors' guides or higher versions of themselves. Is this spiritual, psychological, energetic? Perhaps it's all of them at once. What matters is this intuition becomes vivid when the conscious mind steps aside. And sleep is the perfect gateway. But it's not just dreams. The symbolic world follows you into wakefulness. You might wake with a specific word echoing in your head, or an image that won't leave you, or a strong emotional imprint that colors your entire morning. That's still the dream world nudging you. You don't have to analyze every detail, but learning to respect your dreams as part of your intuitive guidance system will change your life. Keep a dream journal. Write the moment you wake. Don't filter. Don't interpret immediately. Just collect. Over time, you'll notice themes, messages, even clear answers. And when you do, you'll realize something profound. Your intuition doesn't sleep. It dreams. And the universe doesn't stop talking. It just shifts its voice. So the next time you dismiss a dream as just weird pause, ask, what was that dream really about? How did it make you feel? What is my soul trying to say? Because that dream might be the answer you've been asking for. That symbol might be your sign, and that whisper in the night might just be the loudest message the universe has sent you all day. Tuning the frequency, how to strengthen your intuition and receive clearer messages. Imagine your intuition as a radio antenna always capable of receiving signals from the universe. But like any antenna, it must be tuned. If there's too much static, too much noise from the world, the ego, the mind, the signal gets fuzzy. You miss the message. You dismiss the signs. You feel disconnected. But when you adjust your internal frequency, when you become quiet, clear, receptive, the guidance returns. Stronger, sharper, louder. So how do you tune in? How do you strengthen the signal so that your intuition becomes a trustworthy compass rather than a faint suggestion? It begins with stillness. In a world addicted to speed and distraction, stillness is a revolutionary act. It is in the quiet that you can hear the subtle voice of intuition. Meditation isn't just a spiritual practice, it's an intuitive training ground. By observing your thoughts without attachment, you begin to hear what's underneath them. Beneath the noise is a knowing, and the more you meditate, the more clearly that knowing emerges. You don't have to be a monk or sit for hours. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day can sharpen your intuitive clarity. Next comes embodiment. Your body is the most accurate instrument you own. It's always giving feedback. When something aligns, your body feels light, expansive, grounded. When something is off, you feel tight, anxious, heavy. By reconnecting with your body through breath work, yoga movement, or even mindful walking, you reawaken your somatic intelligence. You stop outsourcing decisions to logic alone. You begin to ask, what does my body say? Because often your body knows before your mind admits it. Another powerful tool is journaling. Writing bypasses the inner critic and allows intuition to speak freely. Try this. Ask a question at the top of the page. Something real, something unresolved. Then breathe and write. Don't overthink. Don't edit. Just let the words flow. You'll be surprised how much wisdom pours through when you step aside. This is not magic. This is access. Your intuition speaks when it's invited. You can also practice with small decisions. What to eat, where to go, who to call, pause, feel. Tell yourself not just what do I think, but what feels aligned. You're not trying to be perfect. You're building fluency. Over time, you'll start noticing a consistent pattern. Your intuitive yes feels different than your anxious yes. Your intuitive no feels different than fear-based avoidance. You'll begin to discern the voice of the soul from the noise of the world. Clearing clutter also strengthens intuition. Physical clutter, digital noise, emotional baggage, all of it clouds your channel. The more you simplify, the more you hear. Take time to detox your space, your schedule, your screen time. Make room. Intuition needs space to breathe. When your life is jammed with stimulus, there's no place for subtlety. But in spaciousness, signs appear effortlessly. Spending time in nature is another amplifier. Nature vibrates at a balanced frequency. Trees, rivers, sky, they don't rush. They don't force. They simply are. When you immerse yourself in nature, your nervous system resets. Your frequency recalibrates. And in that space, intuitive nudges become clearer. A walk in silence can solve more than hours of analysis. And perhaps most important of all, trust. You must trust your intuition to strengthen it. Doubt weakens the signal. Trust opens it. Even if you're unsure, act on it gently. You don't have to quit your job overnight or move across the country, but honor the nudge. Follow the small steps. Take the call. Delay the decision. Say yes to the invitation. Say no to the pressure. And then watch. See how the universe responds. When you act on intuition, life often rearranges around you in uncanny ways. Remember, the universe doesn't withhold messages. It simply waits for you to listen. And when you start listening, not with fear, but with faith, you begin to receive not just signs, but symphonies. Because intuition is not rare. It is ever present. And when you tune your frequency to match the signal of the universe, you realize something extraordinary. You've never been disconnected, only distracted. When you ignore the voice, what happens when you silence your intuition? Everyone has ignored their intuition at some point. You felt the nudge, you heard the whisper, you saw the signs, but you talked yourself out of it. You listened to logic, you listened to fear, you listened to others. And so you said yes when something inside you was screaming no. Or you said no to something your soul was aching to pursue. And then the consequences followed, not always immediately, not always dramatically, but undeniably. Ignoring intuition doesn't always lead to disaster. Sometimes it just leads to delay. A path that should have been clear becomes cluttered. A relationship that could have ended early stretches into years of quiet pain. A job that felt wrong from the start drains your energy day after day until you no longer recognize yourself. Life doesn't always punish you for ignoring your inner voice. It simply lets you experience the misalignment. It lets you feel the weight of choosing noise over knowing. And eventually that weight becomes impossible to carry. You may feel it as chronic dissatisfaction, a dull ache of something's off. Everything looks fine from the outside, but inside you feel disconnected, like you're living someone else's life. That's often the first sign you have silenced intuition for too long. You stopped asking, stopped listening, stopped trusting. You became efficient, responsible, logical. But you forgot how to be true. Sometimes the cost is deeper. Illness, anxiety, burnout. Your body keeps the score. When you suppress the soul's direction, your body often absorbs the conflict. It tries to warn you with fatigue, tension, even disease. Because intuition isn't just emotional, it's biological. It lives in your nervous system. And when you force yourself to live against it, the system breaks. You might also find that life becomes more difficult. Things don't flow. Obstacles appear where there should be openings. People around you reflect confusion, tension, resistance. That's not bad luck. That's misalignment. The universe doesn't punish, it mirrors. And when your actions don't match your truth, the mirror cracks. You may find yourself repeating lessons. Different people, same pain. Different jobs, same emptiness. Different place, same restlessness. That's not coincidence. That's your intuition trying again, trying to get your attention. The signs will grow louder. The nudges become pushes. And if you continue to ignore them, sometimes the universe intervenes. It pulls the rug, the relationship ends, the job collapses, the plan fails. And while it may feel like everything is falling apart, what's really happening is this: your soul is breaking the silence you built around it. But here's the grace: intuition is patient. It never leaves. Even when ignored for years, it waits. It watches. And the moment you choose to listen again, it returns. It doesn't say, "I told you so." It simply says, "Welcome back," because the universe is not interested in blame. It's interested in alignment. You may feel regret, that you should have listened earlier, that you wasted time. But there's no such thing as wasted time on the soul's path. Every detour teaches, every misstep refines, and often the pain of ignoring your intuition becomes the very fire that reignites it. You learn not to ignore the signs, not because someone told you, but because life showed you. So don't dwell on what you missed. Don't shame yourself for not listening. Instead, return. Right now, you don't need to explain it to anyone. You don't need permission. All you need is this one simple question. What is my intuition saying right now? And then, listen, you might not get a full sentence. You might not get a clear answer, but you'll feel something, a direction, a yes, a no, a not yet. And the more you honor that voice, even if you've ignored it before, the stronger it becomes. The universe never holds grudges. It only waits for resonance. And the moment you return to that frequency, the guidance returns. The doors open, the flow resumes, the synchronicities multiply. Because the universe doesn't punish, it partners. And it's always ready to meet you where you are. The aligned life. What happens when you truly trust your intuition? Something powerful happens when you stop negotiating with your inner knowing and start honoring it. Life begins to realign not because the outside world changes overnight, but because you do. When you truly trust your intuition, you stop forcing, you stop chasing, you stop begging for clarity from the outside and begin to create it from within. And suddenly things start making sense. Not all at once, not perfectly, but undeniably. You start choosing differently. You say no faster. You say yes more wholeheartedly. You walk away from things that drain you even when they're comfortable. You pursue the things that call you even when they're uncertain. And though the path might look unfamiliar to others, it feels unmistakably true to you. That's alignment. You notice that synchronicities happen more often. You think of someone and they reach out. You dream something and it comes true. You follow a hunch and it leads to an opportunity you never expected. Life begins to feel orchestrated, not by control, but by connection. The people you meet feel familiar. The places you go feel guided. The timing feels divine. And it's not because you're lucky, it's because you're listening. You feel lighter. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because your energy is no longer fractured. You're no longer pretending to be someone else. You're no longer ignoring the whisper that says this isn't right. You're no longer betraying your body's signals or your soul's resistance. You're living in truth, and truth is light. It frees you, it lifts you. You begin to notice the difference between peace and pleasure. Pleasure can be temporary, distracting, numbing. But peace, real peace, comes from alignment. And you start making choices that don't just feel good for a moment, but feel right for your life. You stop asking, what do they think? And start asking, what does my inner knowing say? Because you've lived the alternative and it cost you too much. Relationships shift. Some people fall away, not because you're judging them, but because they no longer match your frequency. And others appear people who reflect your truth, not your fear. Conversations become deeper. Connections become more authentic. You stop seeking validation and start attracting resonance. You're not performing anymore. You're remembering who you really are. Even in challenges, you feel different. You're not immune to pain, confusion, or loss, but you navigate them with a quiet knowing that you're not lost, that even this has meaning, that even now the universe is speaking. And because you've built trust with your intuition, you know how to wait. You know how to stay still when the answers aren't clear. You know how to breathe through the unknown because the unknown doesn't scare you anymore, it invites you. Your creativity expands. You receive ideas that feel channeled, inspired, alive. You start expressing your truth in ways that surprise even you. Whether it's through art, business, movement, or conversation, your voice strengthens. Because you're not copying, you're not mimicking, you're aligned. And from that alignment, creation becomes effortless. You may even notice that your physical health improves. Stress fades. Your nervous system relaxes. Your sleep deepens. Your energy returns. Why? Because alignment is not just spiritual, it's physiological. When your actions match your truth, your entire system harmonizes. Your body stops fighting your choices. It begins to support them. The aligned life is not a destination. It's not a perfect place where nothing ever goes wrong. It's a relationship between your soul and the universe. It's a dance, a listening, a trusting. It's waking up each day and saying, I may not have all the answers, but I'm willing to listen. And from that willingness, miracles unfold. Because when you live from intuition, you stop chasing clarity and become it. You stop begging for signs and become the kind of person who notices them. You stop seeking purpose and start living with presence. And in that presence, everything finds its place. Not because you forced it, but because you followed it. That's the power of the aligned life. And it begins with one simple shift: trust yourself. Trust your inner voice. Trust the part of you that has always known. And when you do, you'll realize you were never lost. You were just waiting to come home. Co-creation. How the universe works with you when you listen. When you begin to trust your intuition and live in alignment, a shift happens. A new rhythm takes over. You're no longer just reacting to life, you're co-creating it. The universe is no longer something outside of you, distant and mysterious. It becomes a partner, a collaborator, a mirror. You move from passive recipient to conscious participant. And in that shift, you begin to experience life not as something that happens to you, but something that happens through you. Co-creation means you act and the universe responds. You align your energy and the outer world begins to reflect that. You take a step and the next piece falls into place. You say yes from your soul and new doors open, not because you forced them, but because your yes had resonance. It had truth. It had power. This is not about manifesting things with your thoughts alone. It's about partnering with life from a place of inner clarity. Intuition shows you where to go. Action turns that direction into reality. The universe is infinitely intelligent, but it honors your will. It honors your choice. You are not a puppet. You are a participant. You are not just guided. You are invited. And the more you respond with trust, the more life meets you with flow. Think of it like a dance. The universe leads, then waits. You respond, then it moves again. It's a sacred rhythm. And when you're in tune with that rhythm, life becomes almost surreal. The right people show up. Resources arrive at the perfect time. You say something you didn't plan to say, and it's exactly what someone needed to hear. This isn't coincidence. This is coherence. It's alignment between your inner state and the field of intelligence that surrounds you. Even your desires shift. You no longer chase goals out of ego or fear. You begin to ask, what wants to be created through me? And instead of forcing timelines or outcomes, you begin to follow energy. You notice what feels alive, expansive, magnetic. You move toward what feels rooted in truth, even if you don't have the full plan. Because in co-creation, certainty is not the goal. Collaboration is. You'll notice that resistance fades, not because challenges disappear, but because your relationship with them changes. You stop seeing obstacles as punishment and start seeing them as realignment. You no longer push against the current. You learn to read the current. And in that space, your decisions become more refined, more precise. You know when to act, when to wait, when to surrender, when to leap. That's the wisdom of co-creation, knowing that you're not creating alone and you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You also begin to access ideas, solutions, and inspiration that feel bigger than you. They come in dreams, conversations, sudden insights. They feel guided, channeled, like you're tapping into something beyond your own mind. That's because you are. When you live intuitively, you open yourself to a higher intelligence, one that doesn't just give you answers, but flows through you to shape the world. And what's most beautiful about co-creation is this: it humbles you. It reminds you that while you have power, you're not alone in wielding it. It's not about controlling reality. It's about dancing with it, listening, responding, trusting, creating not from fear or scarcity, but from truth, resonance, and service. You begin to understand that your life is not just about what you want. It's about what you're here to bring into being. And that calling, that vision, that creative spark, that's the universe whispering, let's do this together. So if you've ever wondered whether the universe hears you, whether your actions matter, whether your intuition is just a private inner echo, the answer is no. It's not just inside you. It's a two-way transmission, a dialogue, a collaboration. The universe hears every whisper, sees every intention, and feels every courageous step you take in the direction of your truth. And when you move with that kind of inner clarity, the outer world can't help but respond. Because co-creation is not a theory, it's a frequency. And when you tune into it, life doesn't just become more meaningful, it becomes alive. The whisper that never leaves. Trusting intuition in the face of doubt. Fear and silence. There will be times when you feel disconnected, when the signals feel weak, when the signs don't come, when you can't tell if it's intuition or anxiety, soul, or fear, truth or delusion. There will be days when you doubt everything you've learned, everything you have felt. You'll ask, where did it go? Why can't I feel it anymore? Was it ever real to begin with? And in those moments, you might feel alone, forgotten, lost. But I want you to know something with all your heart. Your intuition hasn't left you. The whisper never leaves. Sometimes it simply waits. It waits for stillness. It waits for your nervous system to soften. It waits for you to release the pressure to get it right. Because intuition doesn't shout over panic. It doesn't argue with fear. It doesn't rush. It waits. Like a candle in a dark room, it continues to burn quietly. Small, steady, unwavering. No matter how loud the storm gets outside, the problem is never that the guidance disappears. It's that the noise gets louder, the doubt gets thicker, the fear gets sneakier. And in that fog, the whisper becomes harder to hear. But if you've heard it once, you can hear it again. If you've felt alignment before, you can find it again. The soul doesn't give up. The universe doesn't close its channel. What's needed in those moments is not more analysis, but more gentleness. More trust, more patience with the silence. Because silence is not absence, it's preparation. When you stop demanding answers and start allowing space, something magical happens. The whisper returns, maybe not as a voice, but as a knowing, a soft shift, a sense of this is right or this is not. And in that tiny moment, you remember you were never cut off, just clouded. Fear will try to imitate intuition. It'll say, don't go, not because it's misaligned, but because it's unfamiliar. It'll say, stay safe when your soul is begging to expand. That's why discernment is key. Ask yourself, and not am I afraid, but does this feel like contraction or expansion? Intuition may lead you into the unknown, but it never leads you into panic. It may feel risky, but not destructive. It may stretch you, but it won't shatter you. There's a quiet strength to intuition, a grounded, steady pulse that even fear can't mimic. There will also be times when no signs appear, when no dreams come, when no synchronicities show up, and you'll wonder if the universe has gone silent. It hasn't. Sometimes the silence is the sign. It means you already know. It means you don't need another confirmation. It means it's time to trust what you have been given. Because intuition is not a crutch. It's a compass. It doesn't walk the path for you. It simply points, and then you must walk. This is where most people hesitate. They want clarity without risk, certainty without trust. But intuition doesn't work that way. It doesn't give you the whole map. It gives you the next step. And when you take that step, not because it's safe, but because it's true, you activate the next level of guidance. The signal strengthens. The path unfolds. And doubt begins to dissolve, not because it's been eradicated, but because trust has grown stronger. Remember, this doubt does not mean disconnection. Fear does not mean failure. Silence does not mean absence. These are just valleys between peaks, places where your faith deepens, where your relationship with intuition matures, where you learn not just to feel the voice, but to follow it even when you don't. And when you do, something shifts inside. You begin to realize that your intuition is not something you have, it's something you are. It's not a special power. It's your natural state, covered perhaps by conditioning, by trauma, by pressure, but always alive beneath it all, waiting, watching, whispering. So if you're in a season of silence, hold on. Stay close to your breath. Stay grounded in your body. Stay open to small signs. And above all, stay faithful. The whisper hasn't left you. It's just speaking in a different tone. And when you're ready to hear it again, you'll know. Not because it shouts, but because something inside you will softly say yes. This way. And in that moment, you'll remember who you are and who's always been guiding you. The return to inner wisdom. You were always connected. All this time you thought you had to search. You looked to the stars. You looked to books. You looked to signs, numbers, gurus, healers, philosophies. And yet the quiet truth was always waiting, not above you, not beyond you, but within you. Because the real miracle isn't that the universe speaks. The miracle is that you've always had the ability to hear it. You just forgot how. But now something inside you remembers. Not with your mind, but with your soul. You remember that intuition isn't a trick, a theory, or a trend. It is your original language. Before fear, before trauma, before the world told you who to be, you knew. You felt. You followed. You lived with a natural reverence for timing, sensation, energy. You didn't second guess. You sensed. You flowed. And even if you've drifted far from that place, it still lives inside you. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to your essence, to your quiet strength, to the voice you once trusted without needing to explain why. Because in a world filled with noise, algorithms, and opinion, your inner voice remains the only compass that can lead you back to truth, to wholeness, to alignment. Bueno. You don't need to prove your worth to the universe. You are the universe in motion, in form, and breath. The signals you receive are not separate from you. They are echoes of your own vibration, your own readiness, your own remembering. And the more you trust that, the more magical life becomes. Not because it's easier, but because it's real. When you live intuitively, you live honestly. You say yes when you mean yes. You say no when your soul says no. You slow down when your body whispers rest. You speak up when silence becomes betrayal. You follow strange urges and quiet nudges, not because they make sense, but because they make truth. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to chase signs because you are one. And what happens next? You begin to glow, not with ego, but with integrity. You attract differently. You create differently. You love differently. You walk into rooms and shift energy, not by doing more, but by being in tune. You become a tuning fork for clarity, a mirror for truth, a vessel through which life moves with ease. And when things go quiet again, as they sometimes will, you don't panic. You breathe. You wait. You listen. Because you know the whisper will return. Because it never left. Because you never left. You simply forgot. And now, so you remember. So take this knowing and hold it close. In your chest, in your bones, in your choices. You don't need louder voices. You don't need constant proof. You just need presence. Because the universe is already speaking. And you were always connected. If this video spoke to something in you, it wasn't by accident. That feeling you have right now, that's not just inspiration. That's activation. A part of you just woke up. So don't rush to explain it. Don't rush to prove it. Just carry it. Let it reshape the way you walk through life. Let it guide your choices, your pace, your presence. And above all, keep listening. Because the more you listen to your intuition, the more the universe speaks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And welcome back to yourself.